I can turn it on if you want. Or is it on? Oh, it's okay.
Good thing you found us. You with the wrong device.
I guess so.
Yes.
Go through.
Yeah, just a quick little summary. Council
Is
is
the-
on
Is that-
the
The exact address. And that's perfect.
appointments will come forward.
Okay. Oh, this is a different batch. Mine is actually organized.
Yeah.
That's like making me run my iPad. Like it's, my keyboard, it says it's on, but I can't, it defers to touching the screen. I'll show you. Must be a button or something. Maybe Amy can help you.
Okay.
Welcome to the Town of Oliver regular meeting of council held on December 10th at 7 p.m. I'd like to call the meeting to order. I'd like to ask the CEO if there's anything items to add to the agenda.
Thank you, Your Worship. We do not have any additional items for the agenda tonight.
Seeing no new agenda items, I'd like to ask for a motion to adopt the agenda as circulated. Councilor Antonina. Councilor Mattis, any discussion? Seeing no discussion, I call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. No items to rise and report. Next thing would be the adoption of prior minutes. Motion to adopt November 26, 2018 regular open council meeting minutes.
So,
Moved. Seconder, Councilor Rentamina. Call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Committee reports. I'd like to call on Councilor Grice to provide a verbal report of the items discussed at the December 10, 2018 Committee of the Whole meeting.
Thank you, Your Worship. So items discussed today at the Committee of the Whole meeting were water council appointments, which will move forward to the meeting tonight. We spoke to the Agricultural Land Commission Act amendments. We also discussed cannabis production facilities in the Agricultural Land Reserve. Local Government Act Amendment Housing Needs Report was discussed. The carriage home zoning regulation review was discussed. The cemetery bylaw proposed update was discussed. And council appointments were discussed, which would be brought forward to the meeting today. And that's everything.
Thank you, Councilor Grice. We've got Councilor Schwarzenberger on the phone.
That's right.
I think I'll get one. Try to hit mine.
Yeah.
Oops, no, that's not it. Schwarzenberger, is that you?
It is me.
Okay, I've brought you into the meeting for the one item that you need to be here for.
Great, thank you. Merry Christmas, everybody.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, Councillor Schwarzenberger, can you hear me?
Absolutely.
Okay, we'll get moving then. Moving to water matters. Introduce item F1, Water Regulation Amendment Bylaw 1351.05 for adoption. Motion is that the Water Regulation Amendment Bylaw 1351.05 be adopted. Is there any questions? Seeing no questions, I'll bring forward a motion that the Water Regulation Amendment Bylaw 1351.05 be adopted. Do I have a mover? Councillor Ventimina, seconder. Councillor Michelle. Any discussion? Seeing no discussion?
I think we should defer to the CAO just for the, it's a public meeting where we're going to adopt it. I mean, it's been circulated, but just for, let us know how much the increase is, so the people out there, if they're watching, they can, I think it's a good idea.
Thank you, Your Worship. This bylaw that you are about to adopt is been developed with a recommendation of council for a 3% increase in the user rates. And those are reflected in the new prices that are on Schedule A. And any additional funds any revenues left over at the end of the year do go into a reserve fund for the water.
Thank you, CAO. Seeing no further discussion, is there no discussion? I will call the question. Those in favor? Larry?
I'm in favor.
Okay, those opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Schwarzenberger.
Thank you. We'll see you soon.
Yes.
Okay, take care. Bye-bye now.
Bye.
Second item, I'd like to introduce item F2, Gallagher Siphon, DMFA grant application. I'll call on the CAO to provide a verbal report.
Thank you, Your Worship. At the last meeting, 2 meetings ago, we were requested by council to bring forward some information on costs with regards to the scope of the project as it is, if we were to expand it to include the All North report recommendations for repairs, as well as we've done one other scenario where we've included the coverings of Hester and Tinhorn Creek to prevent debris flow into it if there was a flood. What we need to realize is that the first option is, what scenarios for you just a second. The first option, it speaks to a $12 million budget, and I do want to let council realize that that $12 million is put in there due to the fact that we're trying to meet the threshold for meeting the $20 million threshold for getting the application in and getting approval. That $12 million, the project is probably will not likely exceed 11 million, but it's a paper exercise so that we're able to meet the $20 million threshold, and it does include the 12 million includes the contingency that we were thinking of having, as well as the extra contingency that is in there to meet the $20 million requirement. It might be better for me to pass this over to our Director of Operations, because he's a little bit more familiar with the works that have to be undertaken. So I'm going to pass it over to Mr. Goodsall.
Okay, are we talking about scenario 2?
Yes.
Okay, scenario 2 is in the All North report. It's there's several sections over the years that need to be repaired, and we discussed previously. They also itemized a bunch of other improvements that we could do on the canal irrigation network. So those are listed. on scenario 2, and that's the total canal repair costs, if you add all those together, come to close to $6 million, which originally the town was going to do that over time, right? Not everything needs to be done at once. And I think with this grant, we could still do that over time. Like, we don't need to do that do the work in 1 year, because we wouldn't be able to do it in 1 year. Just because of our time frames when our irrigation season's finished and when it starts, we don't have a lot of time to do work in between. Scenario 3 was one that True Engineering thought they would put in, and one that we threw in as a grant application before, and that was to cover sections of area on the canal that's by Hester and Tinhorn Creeks, and just to, if there are debris flows or problems like we've had the last 2 years, and then 2 years ago, obviously our canal got breached with debris, and we were down for a week. So this would alleviate that problem. So it's something that I think True outlines in their report, that it gives it, I think it qualifies a little bit better towards the grant as well. And I think that's it right now.
So in summary, when you look at scenario number 1, 40% of the eligible costs, they would provide for $4.8 million towards that. With the provincial contribution, it's $5 million. So the town's contribution without the contingency would be $2.2 million. And then with scenario number 2, the town's contribution towards that would be $5.7 million. And then scenario 3, which includes all 3 of them, the town's contribution would be $6.6 million.
Questions?
My question, $6.6 million is a lot of money. But it's too bad we don't have a CFO, because I really need in my mind, when I was reading this report, to see how the impact of paying for this long term, what that would mean to the town, and how that compares to doing part of the canal piecemeal and spending $5 million over the next 10 years. There's so many numbers that, you know, how are we going to be able to make a decision without knowing the answer to those numbers? I have a real problem with it. Because, you know, I mean, it's why I guess if we make a commitment to apply for this money, then we're successful, then we're looking at, in scenario 2, it'd be 5.7. We already have $4 million in long-term debt in our water fund. You know, so I mean, I really need to know those numbers. I need to know how that impacts rates going forward. You know, somebody's got to give me a spreadsheet of what rates will be like under different interest rate scenarios too, because interest rates are rising. You know, I mean, we need to make a decision as to what we want to charge our users for water. And how can we make a decision as a council without knowing those numbers? It's really difficult. I mean, I was trying to go through this, and it's a tough decision to make. That's a lot of money to burden our town with, you know, without knowing how that impacts and how we're gonna actually, you know, what kind of rate increases we need to do. We need to have to recoup all of that debt. It's so much debt. You know, and there are other programs as well. I mentioned the CAO once about a program. I looked a little more carefully into it, and that is an Investing in Canada Infrastructure program that was announced.
Yes.
I know there's a deadline of December 21st for registering to even be able to apply for this, but it's in late January that the fund, but they can pay, for municipalities under $5,000, they pay 100% of the project. You know, so part of these might be doable where we apply for a different grant and pay 100% of it. I mean, there's so many questions in my mind that I don't know how we can really make a decision. It's gonna be very difficult without getting a lot more information, for me anyway.
Thank you, Your Worship. With respect to the grant that you're speaking to,
Yeah.
We're talking about that later in the meeting, and we're looking at using it, applying for it for our sewer infrastructure that requires upgrading, where we don't have the reserve funds to cover that kind of stuff, because it is in a little bit more dire dire need of funding, rather, as opposed to the water system itself. So that's what we were looking at as, to bring forward to council to apply for that particular, 100% funding for, I think it's $4 million for, the aeration and, the sludge, that's up at the sludge.
Our town's not allowed to apply for more than one project and see if.
No, it's just usually one project that we apply for.
Is that in, I didn't read that anywhere when I
Yeah.
was going through the online at home to,
Yeah.
Through that program. Because definitely we qualified, because one of the criteria that you have to qualify for the funding is improved food security. I mean, I can think of no other thing, making sure that our canal and our, that's improved food security. I mean, without that canal or, we don't have food security in our community. I mean, we've got a real good argument there. And it's 100% funding. And maybe we should find out for sure if we can only apply for one, because, I think that, if you can put more than one application in, then part of this might be we should be in line for that as well, because it's 100% funded. How do we know that, if we put a water one and a sewer one, they might say yes to one and not the other, but I don't think it's gonna hurt the chances of the other one. They probably look at them as, in a separate light, I would think anyway. I'm just having a real problem, because I spent a lot of time thinking about this, and without knowing what our costs are going to be, I don't wanna commit as a counselor to going and borrowing $5 or $6 million without having a lot more information.
Councilor Garcia.
I think, thank you, Your Worship, for the purpose of this application that was such a near deadline. I mean, I assume if we are successful in this grant application, but we find better ways to, say, borrow the money or other scenarios, that we're not obligated to accept this grant money.
CEO.
Thank you, Your Worship. No, you're not obligated to accept
No.
grant funds at any time.
They would like to turn it down.
With respect to this particular grant, it's due at the end of January to go in with. I do have interim CFO coming in starting on Monday, so I could ask for that information to come forward to the first meeting in January, to assist you in making your decisions. So that will help you with regards to borrowing and et cetera. With regards to borrowing of the funds for this particular project, because it's not potable water, we would have to go to referendum, and we would have to go out to the people to borrow the funds, because it's not potable water.
You're sure that in the dissolution of solid, that there wasn't a provision there where we don't have to go to electric? I thought there was. That's one of the things that was granted to the two municipalities and all of that, so we should look into that.
I'll
Because
double check that, but
Yeah,
it's
it's
usually
not-
for potable water that it comes under the community charter that, for potable water and sewer infrastructure, you do not have to go to the electric, but for other things you do. So I will research that to make sure that.
Yes, because I thought that was one of the provisions in the letters to Hatton,
Yeah.
that was granted, that
Okay.
you didn't need to go to the electric. Pretty sure that's in there.
Okay.
Councilor
Anyway,
Miller.
so.
Next, all right. Thank you. I just have a couple of questions. I guess one of them is following up on an earlier comment, I believe, from Councilor Michelle. Just regarding where we're looking for the funds, because we've asked and received $5 million from the province, and we started just asking for $5 million from the federal government. But now we're looking at different options that are only providing partial funding. Do we still have that ask in, and something could show up in the meantime?
CA.
From past conversations that have been had with the ministries and with the federal government, they have indicated that they would like to know what the industry is planning on, how the industry is planning on supporting that. And as we're the ones that are the industry, because it's our, as opposed to private industry, it's a public public utility over a private utility. But they wanted to know what the benefactors of this were willing to put towards, what kind of funds were they going to put towards that. And so, when in our discussions, we have said that, $2 to $3 million would be something that, the town could be able to manage with our debt load that we currently have and not make any of our other infrastructure programs suffer from that.
Option 3, the priciest of them all, I can't, my screen scroll, let's see what it was that.
19 million.
22 million, whatever, after contingency, 19 million. That includes covering the canal at Hester Creek and Tinhorn Creek. I thought that, we were applying for a separate grant for that, or we talked about applying for a separate grant for that.
We had applied for a separate grant with respect to that for 100% funding, but at the last meeting, I was asked to bring forward information with regards to including this in this particular, project.
But so that grant is still in process?
No, we were not successful in that particular grant.
The first time.
But it was asked of me to bring forward the costs for, for putting cover over the Hester Creek and, also Tinhorn Creek. Just so that you had that information available to you so that you could make a decision. One more thing that I did want to point out is that this particular grant it goes till 2026 for you to be able to use the funds. It's not a 2-year program, it's a multi-year program because it is such a large amount of money that it is a multi-year program. And the corporate officer has just pulled up the investment in Canada information, and it indicates that municipalities may submit one application.
Councilor Grace?
Thank you, Your Worship. In regards to Councillor Michelle's request for more information from the CFO, the report that we have here says the submission deadline for the application is January 11th, and I have our next meeting as January 14th.
We may have to call a special meeting.
And my other question is in regards to scenario 1, do we anticipate any problems with being successful with that scenario with the contingency making up such a large portion of that?
It's a possibility that it could be due to the fact that your contingency is usually only 15% of your costs. Of the overall cost, that's usually what they accept as a contingency when you're going in for an application.
And then this one is 40, I guess?
Pretty close to 60.
Yeah, they were strongly urging us to increase the scope of the project, so.
Thank you.
Councilor Madison, and then Councilor Michelle.
Thank you, Your Worship. I certainly respect Councilor Michelle's desire to have financing numbers. I certainly would want the same myself, but I don't think that should prevent us from moving ahead with a decision based on what Councilor Grice determined, in that we don't necessarily have to spend the funds, but we certainly have to apply for the funds. So I think we should be moving ahead and thinking about applying for the maximum amount of funds in scenario 3, and then using and deciding as time goes on exactly how much of that we desire to use of the amount up to the 20 million. When I look at the 3 scenarios, it would be foolish of us to turn down 33-cent dollars, and that's in scenario 2 and 3. It's approximately 33 cents on the dollar is what our contribution would be, and I think it would be foolish of council to turn that down in any amount. The only thing I would ask for is to expand it even further and look at fencing our canal. When I read the All North report, it talked about security, safety, public safety, and I believe it's time we secured our asset. It's a very valuable asset, obviously, and we should be securing it from liability and also from other things, I guess animals falling in, whatever the case may be. But I think that could be added in as well for, again, 33-cent dollars. We should be looking at everything that we require for our canal. So I would be more than happy at this point to support scenario 3, moving ahead with applying for the maximum amount of dollars, and then using what we need as time goes on, up until 2026 apparently.
Councillor Michelle?
I don't have a problem with that. I mean, we can back out of it, even if we are successful, we can back out. I agree with that. But I think between now and the day that we decide to borrow that kind of money, we're gonna need some hard numbers to look at.
Absolutely.
You know, absolutely. You know, I wanna know how it impacts rates and how, I mean, if we ended up being successful and we did some of these as capital projects, then obviously the All-North, that impacts our budget, because a lot of that was in there, us paying for it going forward, so we might not need to put so much money to our capital reserve account. Might not need to have $1 million capital reserve account, you know, because if all these projects are done under capital projects, you know, on a major project, then,
We're done.
you know, how does the reduction in that amount that goes into there compared to borrowing money? I mean, these are all questions that I need an answer to before I can make a decision, you know, but I think I agree, let's apply and, you know, and then we'll decide, I guess, what we really wanna do.
You're good.
Thank you.
Councillor
Quick
Mattis?
comment, just on the basis of Councillor Michelle's comment there, it would be nice if we could get data from the CFO or whoever's in that position. What are our anticipated capital expenditures between now and 2026 in the canal? Do we intend to spend the same $5 or $6 million in capital expenses? And if that's the case, then in reality, we're just spending the money that we've already committed to. It would be interesting to compare those two numbers, this number versus what we're planning on spending anyways.
Except for when I went through the 5-year capital plan that we adopted, I didn't really see very many items in there. They weren't really in there.
There weren't as many items in there because it's supposed to be a plan moving forward. We're doing so much, some of it's in the operation as well.
That would be operational money that we're talking
So, but
about.
that would save us
Still
a lot of money in the operations if we can get this going. Yeah.
That's right.
I'd like to know what that number is over the next 5 years. What are we, you know? in our
It's
normal
over
capital
100K
operational
a
spending, what are
year,
we gonna spend?
probably, yeah.
That all ties into, that's the kind of information that I think we need as a council, worship, to be able to make that decision.
Mhm.
You know, I mean, if somebody portrays to me that, that it's not gonna have an adverse effect on rates, borrowing all this money compared to what we actually have to spend anyway,
Mhm.
then then that makes my decision a lot easier, but I don't have that information right now. Who's our new CFO?
We don't have a new CFO, I have an interim one, his
Oh.
name's Doug Leahy.
Councillor Mattis?
I will make the motion, if that's the end of the discussion, that staff be directed to proceed with the application for the federal funding on the basis of scenario number 3.
Do you have a second? Councillor Michelle? Discussion? I guess I would just add my comments here as well, trying to determine where, we have to determine, we're gonna have to go to referendum to get this money or not, for sure. I know Town of Oliver has always considered the water utility as one. Does this change that potentially? Where do we get funding from? I think it's something you have to think about though. I mean, it's a big impact on the Town of Oliver, and you bury everything into water utility, which I think is extremely important. But what's the impact on that going to be? And that information we talk about, that we're asking for will help guide us in that decision going forward, because it's gonna be a big decision if we end up having to borrow that kind of money.
I think we'll find
That's
that the
what I'm
operating,
Yeah.
It's a lot of money.
I think we'll find the operating impact to be pretty significant. The annual amount that we spend on repairs coming
Right.
out that we won't have to spend.
Yeah.
That's a bigger number than we realize.
We spend a lot every year.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, I will call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Moving to the next item, item F3, Water Quality Summary Report for the month of 2018. Any questions on that?
Move receipt.
We have a mover to receive the Water Quality Summary Report for the month of November 2018. Do we have a seconder?
Second.
Councillor Grice. Any further discussion?
No discussion, but just to point out, we had a much warmer and drier November than usual after a wetter October than usual. Those are the things that I pulled out. Like quite a bit warmer.
Seeing no further discussion, I'll call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Introduce item F4, water councillor appointments for 2019. I'll ask the CAO to tell us the appointments.
The appointments, at the committee of the whole meeting, it was determined that Councillor Michelle would be appointed as the representative and water councillor, Sadhu would be the alternate to that. So there's a motion that needs to be completed by you, and so that it's, that council appoint water councillor Rick Michelle and water councillor Parminder Sadhu as an alternate to the Water Supply Association for the 2019 year.
Do you have a mover of that motion? Councillor McMahon, a seconder. Councillor Grice, any further discussion?
And just your worship, but that, just for clarification, that's strictly a liaison position anyway. It's not like we're putting a name forward to the board or anything, so just want to clarify.
Seeing no further discussion, I'll call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Councillor Michelle, anything to report?
Just meeting this afternoon, your worship.
Councillor Sadhu?
I had a concern from a grower just below the Ockridge golf course here, and he was saying with by the driving range, there's a canal that's dug out. He's saying when that canal starts running, he's having trouble accessing a lease property that he had recently acquired. He said he's going to follow up with some pictures that he took earlier in the season, and he would send me an email. I will forward that to council when I do receive that. And I told him I would come visit him, but he was busy this afternoon, so.
Is that the golf course up at Fairview?
Yeah,
So where the creek was sort of rerouted
Yeah, when
this
the
year?
creek was rerouted, he was saying that when the water starts running there, so he's kind of worried about the springtime coming in. He's saying he has a lot of trouble accessing his property with his machinery. There's a little bit of a dip there, and he said it's just a mess trying to get in and out of that property.
What property is that?
Gary Dongles up by,
On Tom's.
yeah, one of these things.
I don't think it's really.
It's more of a provincial problem.
Yeah, it's not a water matter, that's what, yeah. It's out of our jurisdiction.
Okay.
Yeah, that would, you'd have to take that up with the Ministry of Transportation, or he would.
Okay.
Yeah, cause
On
it
fire.
sounds like ditching for drainage, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he said it's just all running on his property and it's just draining for us. And I think that's it.
Well, thank you, Councillor Sadhu, Councillor Michelle. That concludes water matters for this evening.
Yeah.
Thank you. We have one delegation to appear before council this evening, the South Okanagan Immigrant and Community Services. I'll invite Mrs. Seed, I hope I pronounced that right. Mrs. Unpath to the podium.
Lower the microphone just a smidge.
Assalamualaikum everyone. My name is Tahira. I'm originally from Pakistan and I immigrated to Canada 11 years ago. I've been to a hockey game and I've eaten cookies, so my team tells me I'm integrated. But I was watching Diane do the icon of copy paste and I don't think I'm integrated. Or that. So then we'll go from there. I'm here today on behalf of the South Okanagan Immigrant and Community Services. We are primarily funded by the Federal Department, IRCC, Immigration, Refugee and Citizenship Canada. Our catchment area is from Summerland to Osoyoos and west to Costin, Kermias and Princeton. We serve temporary foreign workers, post-secondary international students, permanent residents, naturalized Canadians and refugees.
Is it not working? I can do it from here.
Okay,
So-
I'll just pretend. Okay.
Just give me a signal.
Annually, we serve more than 1,500 clients in the South Okanagan-Similkameen region, and our fiscal year is from April to March. So in the previous fiscal year, we served those clients originating from 97 different countries. 60% of those clients are between the age of 25 and 54, meaning all of them have full-time jobs, some of them more than one job. We provide 6 direct services and 1 indirect service. By direct services, I mean we are providing services directly to the clients. Out of those 6 services, the most important one is language classes. As you can see from the picture, it is, we have 4 language classes all the way from lower beginner, ABC, up to intermediate. These are adult learners. We also provide workshops, and we carefully schedule these workshops to run on a weekend because, as I said, majority of our clients are working and their working hours are the same as our office hours. So we schedule these workshops either in the evening or on a weekend, so they are able to come and attend instead of having to take off from work, lose wages, and then come and get these one-day certification courses. We selected these certification courses specifically for the hospitality industry because that's what our primary sector is. This is a graduation day for the first aid course. Majority of those clients are from Oliver. Yes, they are. Our other services, direct services, is employment services, settlement services, community connection. All of those services, depending on what the client needs, we help them one-on-one. In rare cases, do we help them in smaller groups because our clients tend to come one person at a time. They may actually come and ask for additional services because their family members are not able to attend, but it's usually one-on-one. And employment, getting started with a resume, how to look for jobs, how to target your resume for a particular job, career options, credential evaluations, those kind of things. We also have a licensed childminding facility on site in the Penticton office. We are a bit different than the daycare. The primary difference is we cannot have children in our facility without their parents being in the same building, either getting a service from us or attending one of the language classes. The other major difference is we cannot have the children in our facility for more than 3 hours at a time. That is what our licensing is specifically for. So we are not at all like a daycare. Besides having 2 offices, one in Penticton and one satellite office in Oliver, we are also on the road and in partnership with the regional libraries. We provide services in Osoyoos and in Karameas. In Oliver, because the library is open until late hours, we tend to then partner with the Oliver Library as well during the month of July and August to utilize their longer hours. We will start from 12 noon and go all the way until 8 o'clock in the evening because majority of our clients are working during the morning hours. Our annual event is a multicultural event, One World Penticton. This is offered in partnership with the Lakeside Resort. Each year we attract more than 2,000 people. Some are coming from Kelowna as well. This year we had 35 different cultures represented during that one day. So we have food vendors, information booth, merchandise vendors, and multicultural entertainment as well. We also provide the citizenship, we also host the citizenship ceremony in partnership with the city of Penticton. Generally, these ceremonies are hosted in the Lower Mainland, so we lobbied for a few months and got the city to partner with us, and we were able to convince the federal government that yes, they should consider us as another sector once a year to host a ceremony in Penticton. In 2003, we recognized that our client base is increasing and there's much more demand of different programs. We were also able to get additional grants approved as well. And because of that, our current space, we were not able to fulfill it completely so that it benefits the clients. So we brought that to our board, and our board actively started looking into constructing our own building. We were previously on Main Street. We are now in our own building on Ellis Street. I've talked about the direct services. We provide one indirect service, which is the Local Immigration Partnership, and my colleague Nora here will talk a little bit about that.
Thank you. Good evening. Yes, I'm the coordinator for the what's called the Local Immigration Partnership Council. It is as she says, an indirect service, so where they're working directly with the immigrants, our role and my role is to help build capacity in the communities for welcoming and integrating immigrants. So in a way that we all play a role to help bring immigrants and have immigrants settle in our communities. So it was started in 2014, and at that time we put together a council. We have about 50 people on our council. We have representatives from each municipality on that council, as well as other immigrant serving agencies, public institutes like our school districts. We have the regional employment networks, so the Chamber of Commerce from the South Okanagan, from Summerland, from Penticton. We have employers representing different sectors, local associations like the industrial area. We have newcomers on the council as well, so we make sure that they're represented, and other key stakeholders like Interior Health and Okanagan College. So it puts together a very well-rounded council, an advisory council. In our early start in 2014, we did a series of research and determined that it could take up to 15 years for a newcomer to feel integrated into a community. So our overall shared goal is just to increase the pace of social and economic integration for newcomers. We don't want it to take that long. We want to do everything we can to shorten that time of integration. We use a system called Collective Impact. So I like to show this particular graphic because, again, it shows the backbone organization is actually SOEX. The steering committee is the LIP Council, and then from that we have working groups, various partners. But I like to show this because, again, it cascades down to the community members and the public will, that again, that we all play a role on how we can make our areas more attractive for immigrants' integration. There's 3 areas of focus that we look at: employment readiness, language proficiency, and welcoming. With the employment readiness, we're not just looking at how ready is the immigrant, but also how ready is our employers relative to integrating newcomers when they do hire them, and how ready how prepared are they for attracting newcomers. Language proficiency, going that step beyond language classes, but what can we do that will help them improve their language and be more productive and more of a contributor in the workplace. And welcoming communities, again, you know, what can we do to avoid isolation? What can we do to actually, I'm using the word integrate a lot tonight, it's getting late, but integrate people into I'm losing it, that's okay. We'll go on. So, relative to some of the work we do, relative to employment, we do a forum every year, an employer forum every year. Last year we did a focus on trades. A lot of countries don't necessarily have the same opportunities we have, like apprenticeships and safety issues and unions and things like that in their countries. So we really wanted to introduce trades as an option for a career path. We started off with just an introductory workshop. You can switch slides. And then we moved on to a tour. We had the opportunity to go to different businesses, to go to college so that they could see firsthand what it would be like to work in trades. And then we finished with a forum at the Okanagan College where, again, we're bringing together several different employers representing different trades: electrical, mechanical, carpentry, culinary, different trades, as well as the resource people. So ITA, which is your Industry Training Authority, BC Construction Association, Community Futures, Work BC, groups like that, with the immigrants. So everybody is together in one forum. With language, we've had one great partnership recently with the Penticton Toastmasters Club, where they offer an 8-week course. This is our 2nd year that we've completed it, called Speechcraft. So if you can imagine what it's like to stand up like I am right now and speak in public, and how nervous that can make people, consider what that would be like if English wasn't your first language. So it's an absolute great partnership that we have there, and we can really see the difference and the confidence grow just through a system like that. Quite a few years ago, the LIB Council identified that there was a gap relative to language moving people into the medical industry. So SOEX was able to actually create a specific class for that, medical English class. We've offered it 3 times now. We've partnered with WorkBC to help them move into care aid programs and other medical English programs. So it's been a great success. Most recently, SOEX has also put together a business English class, specifically for the rural areas, through the Rural Dividend Fund. But again, I bring this up as an opportunity that we try to promote to employers, reasoning to actually send their staff to the training to support them that way, and either by time off or paid time to actually, again, improve their language and be more productive in the workplace. The Community Champions program is a program that we use to increase awareness, again, to increase the awareness about what immigrants bring to our area and what our area can bring to them. In this case, we actually featured 10 different stories of immigrants from 10 different countries, their work, their businesses they've started, their volunteer work. We put this together in stories that were published in the Penticton Western and on Castanet, and you'll see them actually in stands in different locations as well throughout the region. So what's the future for BC? Well, currently 28% of our residents are immigrants in BC, 23% are second generation. The BC Labour Market Outlook tells us that there's going to be 903,000 job openings in the next 10 years. 68% of that because of retirement, but 32% because of growth. So what's this mean for immigration? Next slide.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. They tell us that they're estimating that 27% of those job openings are going to be filled by immigrants, need to be filled by immigrants. So that's about 24,000 immigrants each year to fill those job openings. So today, what's our ask? Well, we simply want to ask that you continue to support the Local Immigration Partnership Council with an active member on that Partnership Council. We've been very lucky to have Councillor Villanueva represented on that council and actually co-chair that council with us. The second ask is that often what people don't realize, or what municipalities, boy, I am losing it today. Municipalities don't realize is that they're one of our touch points when immigrants move here, whether it's getting a utility bill or getting some information about a business, but they don't necessarily know about the South Okanagan Immigrant Community Services. So we want to make sure that we're working closely with municipalities so that they will help us make those referrals to our door. And then our third ask is that we want to remind you to always wear your newcomer's lens. So within your committees, and I know you all belong to many committees, you also volunteer out in your own communities, you're making plans for Oliver, that you take a moment every now and then, put on your newcomer's lens, and remember what it might be, or what is the position from a newcomer. And that would help us out a lot.
Smile.
Smile.
Oh my Lord. It's for our Facebook page. Oh.
And we'd love to open it up to questions.
Any questions?
I have a question.
Sure.
Love your newcomer's lens. Those are fabulous. I just wanted to thank you for your presentation and thank you for all you do in the South Okanagan and Similkameen. One of the stats that jumped out at me during the presentation when I was reading that earlier is that over the past year you served clients from 97 different countries of origin, which is huge and not something that you really recognize even living in our communities. So I just thought that was cool and worth highlighting. And just to the rest of council, if you haven't had an opportunity to participate in the One World Festival, you have to. Most of, I don't know what the number was last year, it's not 97 represented?
No, 37.
So, lots.
37. We cannot host more than that.
Of course, yeah, it was huge, packed, busy, but it's really amazing to see all of the different cultures represented. And that will be on February 23rd next year, so mark it in your calendars right now.
We have our AGM report for you as well. On the last page, we have a list of countries. Since we've been counting our data, it says that we've helped clients from 126 countries.
So,
You don't have anything, but I will thank you and coming and giving us a presentation.
Thank you so
That's
much.
awesome. Very important. Very important work you guys are doing without a doubt, because there is definitely a void and a lot of employment coming up.
Mhm.
We need to fill that void and getting prepared to be able to, take on those opportunities is
And
very
it will be
important.
competitive as well, because every small region is looking to fill the void for the employers.
Do you have, I guess I would ask one question, some of the people you're working here, do you have any people with an some kind of education background, or definitely just sort of grassroots coming up with trades and or do you have some people that have some coming from other countries with probably some really good credentials that have
Yes, we do.
opportunities?
Yes, we have plenty of clients come in with trained and experienced in a professional background. If they are coming in as temporary foreign workers, they work with whatever they are, whatever job is available until they become an immigrant. Once they are an immigrant, then they need help to identify what are the career paths they can go with. We don't get lawyers or doctors as much. I don't think we have any, but we do have accountants that come. We do have nurses that are coming here. They cannot necessarily practice as a nurse, but then there are other options for them to consider. They could get their credential evaluation and get into the career aid program. For an accountant, they could start as a bookkeeper. If it's a student who was studying law, then perhaps he or she could consider becoming a legal assistant. Those kind of things.
And we get IT as well.
Yes.
Quite a bit of IT.
Yes. Not many clients come in with their profession and are able to work in Canada. Canada has very strict regulations. My husband was an IT manager and his first job was as a bouncer. That is the way it is in Canada. You start at a lower level, but then there are opportunities.
Awesome, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, council, moving to bylaws, each one, civic addressing amendment bylaw 1320.04 is here for adoption. Any questions or comments on that bylaw? If not, I'll call the motion that the civic addressing amendment bylaw 1320.04 be adopted.
So,
Thank you.
Second.
No discussion, call the question, in favor? Those opposed? Motion carried. Moving to item H2, sewer user rate amendment bylaw 1331.04 for adoption. Any questions or discussion?
Go ahead first.
no, go ahead.
Sure.
Councilor
Thank you. I just had I just wanna make sure that I understand what's what on this, rates and, base rates and all those different things. So if I understand correctly, through the CAO, I believe to Mr. Goodsell, possibly, if I understand correctly, we have a parcel tax of $109.40, which is different than the flat rates, which are listed there, but for example, for a single family residential, $268.35. And I just wanna make sure that I'm clear on who gets charged what and that sort of thing.
Okay, I'll try to explain what I know. Sewer user rates are for actual users that have the connection and are using the services. Sewer parcel tax, I believe, are for residences or properties that could potentially have they have the infrastructure running by the property and they need to pay that sewer parcel tax, I believe. Maybe the CAO can back that up.
It's the sewer parcel tax is for the infrastructure itself, and the sewer user rate is for the use of it.
So some properties would have septic fields in certain areas of town, but if they have infrastructure running by their property, they would pay the parcel tax.
Yeah,
I follow. So they have the ability to easily connect then?
Yeah.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. I have one more thing to just a typographical thing. Item number 3, the Oswego Indian Reserve parcel service fee. The actual written dollar amount says $105.20, but in brackets it's $109.40, so I think that just didn't get changed last year.
Which one is?
Item C, the Oswego Indian Reserve parcel service fee.
Number
Page
3.
3.
Page 3?
It's just the written dollar amount doesn't match.
Page 3, yeah, 3 of 5, item 3.
Oh, sorry.
Section 3.
So I think
Okay.
109.40 is the correct amount, because that appears in
Yes,
all other
we will
taxes.
correct that. It is a typo. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilor Mattis.
My question's through to the CAO. Could you, for the people at home, could you let them know what the percentage increase would be?
The percentage increase for sewer this year was set by council at 4%.
Thank you very much.
Further questions? We have a proposed motion that the sewer user rate amendment bylaw 1331.04 be adopted. Do I have a mover? Councilor Grice, seconder Councilor Mattis. No further discussion. I'll call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Next up, item H3, sewer parcel tax amendment bylaw 1360.03. Any questions or discussion on this one? Councilor Mattis.
No questions, Your Worship. I'll just make the motion that the sewer parcel tax amendment bylaw 1360.03 be adopted.
Seconder. Councilor Antimila. No discussion. Oh, CEO.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just to let the people at home know that, again, it's a 4% increase on the parcel tax as well.
Thank you. Call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. That concludes items under bylaws, and we'll move to business. Item I1, investing in Canada Infrastructure Program, Rural and Northern Community Infrastructure Stream Application. The Director of Operations has a verbal report for us.
Thank you, Your Worship. This was the other grant that we were previously just talking about making application for on the sewer side because our sewer reserves aren't as healthy, and there's some work in the near future that we need to do with our treatment process. So we are seeking a council resolution to make an application, and which this grant would be 100% covered. So it's pretty much a win if we can get it. True Engineering outlines in the reports that there are 3 existing issues that we have, for future upgrades to our existing treatment area up at Topping Lake. We require more land, and we're finding that getting more land, Crown land, land tenures are harder and harder with environmental assessments and everything else. It's not looking as rosy to get more land up there. And then sludge accumulation over time in the aeration cells 2 and 3 start accumulating, and it affects the aeration and the treatment process. And then third would be the instability of the berm in between the cells. We had a seismic assessment done and up at Topping Lake because it's an earthen dam, the reservoir, and that was actually deemed okay. It was fine. It was just between the two cells, where the berm needs to be upgraded. So True Engineering, put together, in the report, they put this, proposed upgrading that they wanna do, which would stabilize the middle berm, do aeration system upgrades, which if council remembers in the capital budget, I had brought forward diffuser cell 2 and 3 and VFD upgrades to do this year. And what would happen, we budgeted $260,000 for that. What would happen is we would hold off on that until we found out if we do apply for this, until we found out if we got this. And if we don't get it, we'll just carry forward with our previous project. It's only a smaller portion of this whole project, obviously. And also, I think what they thought would help our application would be add in the solar portion, which again, we do have money in the budget to apply for grants and do a 50-50, I believe, or did we decide no, it'd be fully 100% grant to try to get a solar project that would offset some of the energy used at Topping Lake and our treatment facility. So he's combined, Steve Underwood, our engineer, has combined those three, and he's projected the total cost of the project would be, with contingencies and engineering, would be about $4.5 million, 4.6 million basically. Were there any further questions?
Any questions, council? Councilor Mattis?
I don't know if you have the number in front of you, through the chair to Mr. Blitzel. Do you know what our desludge reserve is right now?
I do not know. I know we have some money in there. Yeah, I don't have that number in front of me right now. Sorry.
Any other questions? We have a proposed motion that council directs staff to make application to the Investing in Canada Infrastructure Program, Rural and Northern Community Infrastructure Stream application for the aerated lagoon treatment system capacity improvements in the amount of $4.64 million at 100% funding. Do I have a mover? Councilor Bentamina, second. Councilor Grace. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
I think so.
Next item, item I2, 2019 council appointments. I'll refer to the CAO. We have a list.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. Earlier today, council had a discussion with regards to appointments for our regional services, select committees, standing, I don't think we have any standing committees, and our outside boards, and I just need to do that. For the Oliver Parks and Recreations Society, Councillor Schwarzenberger would be appointed, as well as Councillor Grice as the alternate. Oliver District Heritage Society, Councillor Ventimiglia, with Mayor Johansson being the alternate. Select committees, the Airport Advisory Committee is Councillor Mattis, with, as well as Councillor Ventimiglia. The Oliver Downtown Revitalization Advisory Committee is Councillor Schwarzenberger, with Councillor Grice being the alternate. Community Safety and Crime Prevention, which is a new select committee that council has struck, and that would be Mayor Johansson and Councillor Mattis would be on that select committee. The community committees, school district number 53 is Councillor Schwarzenberger. I'm just gonna, I see a hand up.
I believe it was Councillor Grice was on that committee rather than myself.
For the community
The
safety.
community and safety.
Okay.
Yes.
Sorry. Okay. Thank you.
Well, I have it written down.
Yeah, school district number 53 is Councillor Schwarzenberger, with Councillor Ventimiglia as the alternate. Sister City is Mayor Johansson, with Councillor Ventimiglia as the backup. Chamber of Commerce is Councillor Grice, and Councillor Mattis is the alternate. Hospital liaison for the South Okanagan General Hospital is Councillor Councillor Ventimiglia with Mayor Johansson as the alternate. Food Action Advisory Committee is Councillor Ventimiglia with Councillor Grice as well on the committee. Is there two? Two, yeah. And then Children and Youth Center Advisory is Councillor Grice, and then the alternate is Councillor Schwarzenberger. Outside boards for Municipal Insurance Association, we have Mayor Johansson and Councillor Mattis as the alternate. Oliver Tourism Association, Councillor Schwarzenberger and Councillor Mattis as the alternate. And Multicultural Services, we have Councillor Ventimiglia and Councillor Grice as the alternate. Is that correct?
Yes.
I remember sticking my hand.
Yeah, so, the proposed motion is that council appoint the following as committee members and alternates for the 2019 year.
Do I have a mover? Councillor Ventimiglia, seconder. Councillor Grice. Any further discussion, changes? Seeing none, call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
I got to read the longest resolution ever.
Moving to correspondence, item J1, December 10th correspondence report, to refer to the CAO for comment. Guide us through this.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm going to pass this over to our corporate officer, and she will put you through the council actions required.
Thank you very much. For the correspondence report, council action required, the first item is a letter of support request from a business owner. He is wanting to make application to the Passenger Transportation Safety Board to add an additional taxi cab service to the town of Oliver. There's proposed motions where council may wish to provide the letter of support to include with this taxi cab application. Council may wish to decline, or you may receive and file.
Any comments?
Make a motion for discussion.
Okay, I can make a motion for discussion. I would move, can we discuss first?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
You can ask questions.
Well, I read through that earlier, and I definitely support the idea of adding taxi cab service to the community. I mean, I don't think it's a secret that we don't have a lot of cabs, and they're at times hard to get a hold of and that sort of thing. I don't know if we can, if we should be specifically providing a letter of recommendation to one
Support.
of support, sorry, yeah, of support to one applicant whom we don't know much about his business or business practices besides what's been provided, like the very basics. So I guess I would, okay, I would like to move that we provide a letter of support, but that letter of support be more generic in the fact that we support the addition of cabs, because I think it looks like the province is opening up the licenses so that more are available, and so that I would support the idea of adding licenses to our community, so in that generic form, if that's possible.
A generic letter to you, for an economic.
I mean, yeah, specific to the cabs, but not
Yeah.
specifically endorsing him as a, it might be great, I just don't think we know enough about him as a business itself. I'm done.
I'll second the motion.
Is that the way we want it to read, or do we want to
No,
put a
the
letter of
council
support
that.
for a taxi
Yeah.
cab act, an
Yeah.
additional taxi cab?
Yeah,
Not naming anybody in
Yeah.
particular?
yeah.
Councillor Mattis?
I would suggest that you can name the person in particular, and if more applications come forward, we could do the same for those, treat them all equally. If no applications come forward, it would certainly make this application stronger if we name it specifically, or say that yes, we're in favor. And if more applications come, we can do the same for them, there's no reason we wouldn't. Whether we know about them or not, that would be up to the taxi commission to determine whether they would issue a license based on their history, so to speak. So I will make a friendly amendment to remove the word generic.
Okay.
Councillor Grant?
I felt a little more comfortable on the generic basis personally. I mean, I like in the letter the idea of having the hybrid vehicles and the accessible van, but I think giving a letter of support to a specific business that I don't know anything about it just feels iffy to me.
I like the way the proposed motion is that council directs staff to provide a letter of support for an additional taxi cab business in Alberta. Do I have a mover?
Yeah,
I think she's already moved it, and then I make a
Kind of
friendly amendment
changed
to
it.
remove generic. Do you accept the amendment?
Sure, yeah, absolutely.
And then second motion.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? Favor?
Opposed?
Counselor,
You opposed?
Councillor
Councillor
Rice
Rice
opposed.
Okay. Motion carried.
Thank you.
Can I clarify though, are we doing it as the generic or are we doing it specific to
A letter of
business?
support,
Specific to this
just a
business?
letter of support.
It didn't have his name in it,
No.
so
No.
it's specific to the fact that we support an additional
It
business.
counts, yeah, there,
But it doesn't have his name.
right under movement.
Okay, well, that was my opposition, was that it was to a specific
No, it's just a
business.
a letter of support.
If it's just more taxi service, then,
Yeah.
then I'm for the motion.
Okay,
Similarly, we'll be asked as a council to give letters of support to many different businesses that we'll know nothing about over the course of time. The businesses themselves, when we get our first application for a marijuana store, for example, we may not know much about the thing, but we'll still be asked to give letters of support.
Fair enough.
there's one coming down the pipe.
I'm sure there is.
Thank you. Next item, Chair? The next item on the correspondence report is correspondence from the Southern Interior Local Government Association, SILGA. They're calling for resolutions for the 2019 convention. The potential motion is that as we do have a deadline of March 1st, which gives us some time to deliberate, our council to deliberate, so council may wish to begin that deliberation for potential resolutions to be considered at the annual meeting for SILGA at their 2019 convention.
Any questions, discussion? Councillor Mattis?
I'll move receipt and file at this point.
Does that have to be seconded? I'll second that if I can speak to it.
Of course.
Thank you. I think that it would be, I would like to have a conversation as a council at some point, maybe even just a quick couple minutes during our strategic planning session, just to see if there's any ideas that we as a council could response here, and that's our opportunity once a year.
We've got till March.
Yeah, exactly. Like during the strategic planning time, makes sense. We're all together. It's not quite so formal. We can throw a few ideas around. Proceed with that until
Has been
strategic
noted.
planning.
Okay. We have a motion to receive and file.
Yeah, that's good.
First and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
The third piece of action item for council's consideration is the Local Government Management Association, the LGMA, is celebrating its 100th anniversary in 2019. And across the province, they're asking local governments to participate in a commemorative tree planting celebration in the celebration of a century of dedication by purchasing a tree from an existing supplier, and we can submit a reimbursement up to $50 to the LGMA. The LGMA is the association that staff belong to.
Councillor Mattis?
I would suggest that given that we are planning on building a park and maybe through to the Director of Operations, would we be able to make use of this $50 towards our park?
Is it only one $50?
One tree.
I think it would be foolish of us to not, it's still 50.
Can we purchase multiple trees?
Yeah.
Um,
We'll purchase on behalf of towns that aren't.
yeah.
Dedication. Purchase new trees and existing fires.
It's in, did you say it was for?
So if I understand correctly, you would be able to make use of this
Yeah.
$50 bonus.
If we do build the park next year, it'll be, yeah, we're planning on replanting a bunch of trees.
Well, if not there, then on a boulevard somewhere.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I apologize, I see the attachment didn't get attached to the correspondence report, so
No.
you missed the good information.
So I would make the motion that, well, not the council participate, but rather that the town of Oliver participate in the commemorative tree planting in celebration of the century of dedication by purchasing the tree from an existing supplier and asking for the reimbursement from the LGMA.
Seconder? Councilor Benita. Any further discussion? Seeing none, call the question. Those in favor? Opposed, motion carried.
Thank you. And then the final grouping of correspondence is for information. And the motion is to receive the above correspondence and the weekly mail correspondence that you get.
Before I call the motion, is there any discussion on any particular item? Councilor Ridgway? Sorry.
Thank you. Thank you. Through to the CAO, I think it was already answered there kind of, but item 3 is correspondence from the Ministry of the Attorney General regarding the role of local governments, or the role that local governments have in cannabis licensing. And when I read through that, I just wondered if we had received any applications, as that's one of the steps.
We have not received a application as yet, but we have been queried with respect to an application that they're starting to look at, and they asked us if it was in the proper zoning.
Is
If
it
it's fit and proper.
Proper zone.
If it's
Oh,
fit
if it's
and
the
proper.
proper
Fit and
Yes.
proper.
Okay.
Fit and proper,
So we will see one in a
yes.
decent amount of time.
Yes, we did reply back saying that it did meet our zoning.
Okay, excellent, thank you. That was my only question.
Councilor Grace?
I was just gonna move that the above correspondence and weekly mail be received.
Second.
Seconded, Councilor Mattis. Any further discussion? Seeing none, call the question. Those in favor? Opposed, motion carries. Moving to reports, K1, building permit report for the month of November 2018. Motion and seconded. Any further discussion?
I have a question.
Councilor Mattis?
Through the chair, and I don't know whether you'd be able to answer this, when I look at the report, I see, 2 properties basically side by side each other's, same home value, with different amounts for the building and plumbing fees. I'm wondering if you can shed some light on that.
They might have, an
Exactly
additional
the same
value.
square footage.
I can't answer that, but I will check into it,
Thank you.
and I will email everybody with the answer tomorrow,
I did have a question.
okay?
I'm just seeing that the totals for value of construction were actually higher to date than last year, and yet our building and plumbing fees are third.
The $8 million hotel is in this year. So, that's why.
Oh, and the fees were in last year.
Mhm.
Okay.
Well, no, the fees might have been in this year as well, but it's, oh my,
Depends on the nature of the construction, if there's no plumbing and sewer.
yeah, I will,
there won't
I
be any fees.
yeah, I see what you're looking at, so I will, look into that.
That's a
That's a
big difference
yeah.
when the value
It
is
could
more.
be an error in calculation, cause currently right now we're doing this manually.
Yes, we are
Should
transitioning.
be a 1 in front of that, 41.
Yeah,
That would be nice.
maybe.
Yeah.
We're
I think 1 in front
transitioning
of the two.
from.
Yeah. So we will, we'll make sure that,
It almost
Our
looks like it's
calculations.
1/3 of the year,
yeah,
even though the total is larger for the whole year.
Did you see?
Could be subdivisions versus larger projects.
No, this is all.
Oh, still wouldn't
It's all under the building permits.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm assuming.
There's some errors.
I will, check the numbers.
I was just gonna, I thought I heard, did you say you're doing this manually right now?
Right now, we're in the process of going into VADM with the whole building permit application, and we're still building this report, to come out of VADM at this point in time.
And the module,
Pardon?
the module of that.
Yeah. Yeah, the module is in VADM, but, our reporting, we just haven't been able to work with the, VADM to get it, to just pull the information we would like to have. And, to get the year-to-dates information and the, total from previous year, we have no back information in VADM right now, because it was done in an Excel spreadsheet prior to that. So it should correct itself in the coming year,
That's probably what it is.
yeah.
We have a motion then to accept the building permit report for the month of 2018. Did
It's
we?
already done.
Oh, we did?
Just have
We
it
are.
right here.
Okay. Vote. Vote. See ya.
Thank you, Richard.
Unanimous.
Okay, yeah, unanimous.
Done.
Thank you, Your Worship. We will bring forward a corrected report when we do December. We'll bring forward a corrected November report as well at the same time in January. Thank you.
Item K2, Oliver Fire Department report for the month of 2018.
Move receipt.
Seconded. Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. And the last one, the airport manager report for November 2018. Moved. Seconded. Question? Those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. And now we got reports from council. Councilor Renton.
Thank you very much. I have my list. On Tuesday, November the 27th, I attended a Rural Healthcare Coalition meeting in Carameus. Thursday, November the 29th, I was at the RDOS Regional District Strategic Planning Workshop. On Friday the same week, so that's November the 30th, I started the day with Mayor Johansson in Penticton. We were at the Interior Health offices in the Penticton Regional Hospital. We met with Carl Meadows, Deb Runge, and Susan Brown. The same day, I was at the Regional District Budget meeting and then the Town Hall annual Christmas party that evening, so it was a busy day. And I had the honor of presenting a bunch of plaques, awards for years of service to town employees on behalf of the mayor that evening. Monday, December the 3rd, I attended the conflict of interest workshop with most of council. Tuesday, December the 4th, stopped by the open house at the community center, and that was regarding the new park proposal and the traffic calming study. Thursday, December the 6th, I attended the Regional District Board meeting in Penticton, and this past Saturday was at Breakfast with Santa at the community center, and I just wanted to thank Parks and Rec for that once again. They do a great job every year, and that's the end of my report.
Thank you, Councilman. Says you're absent. Grace, Councilor Grace. So,
I guess we're supposed to be short and brief.
You notice that? I have no
It's
water
Madison.
report, I'll get mine later.
yeah, Councilor Mattis.
No, actually, I'm further down, I have no water report. I'm on there twice.
No worries.
Water council matters.
And new staff.
Go ahead, Councilor.
So that's me though?
That is to you.
So November 30th, I attended the town Christmas party, so I was happy to be there. December 3rd, I was at the conflict of interest seminar. December 4th also was able to go into the open house. It was really interesting to hear from other residents in the town as to what their thoughts were on the park and the traffic calming and other areas of interest for them as well. December 8th, I attended the Breakfast with Santa as well at Parks and Rec. It's a fun annual tradition for our family and a great community event. And then the meeting was earlier today.
Thank you, Councilor Mattis.
Thank you. Your worship. November 30th, the Christmas party with everyone else. December 1st, the fireman's breakfast for highway healing. December 2nd was the Legion Branch 97 executive installation. I was invited to represent the town there. And December 4th was the traffic calming in parks with the rest of the council. And December 6th was the open house at our local MLA with Councilor Rice. She was there as well. And on December 8th with Councilor Rice as well at the Christmas market down at All Reeds, a nice little small but new community little event. It was quite good. And that's it.
Thank you, Councilor Mattis. November 30th, I was at Dickman Regional Hospital with Councilor Benjamin, talking to Carl Meadows. Gonna follow up with him. Did have an action item. Conflict workshop on December 3rd, and later in that day I actually had a tour of the Parks and Rec building, so that was pretty interesting to see some of the infrastructure challenges we have with some of those buildings, particularly the arena that's going on there. December 13th, well that's, this Thursday hasn't happened yet, but that's it.
I have every intention.
I have every intention to go to Venable Cedar, because there's an open house there.
Yes,
Right.
yes, the Christmas party.
So,
Well, I got invited to that too.
that'll be good. I'd like to take this opportunity to extend season greetings from the town of Oliver, on behalf of the town of Oliver and council, to everybody in attendance. Have a
You
safe-
get all three trainings.
Upcoming meetings, Monday, January 14th, it'll be our first council meeting back, 7 p.m. regular meeting. Wednesday, January 23rd, 5 p.m. Budget meeting.
Excuse me, Your worship.
Yes.
Correction on that, I think those budget meetings are January 22nd, 23rd on my calendar. And, or they, at least that's what I received from the,
23, 24.
on this, it says 23, 24, but I believe it's 22, 23.
Okay,
Regardless of
And
when,
they may get pushed on another week.
According to an email I got yesterday.
regardless of when they are, the 23rd and 24th are not probably great days because it's the LGLA newly re-elected retreat in Kelowna, the 23rd, 24th, and 25th of
Okay.
January.
We might have to push it out a bit due to the fact that we don't have a CFO.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that we were discussing that before, that the last week of January may work better for everyone.
And Monday, January 28th, we have a regular meeting as well, 7 p.m. Acting Mayor for January, February is Councilor Schwarzenberger. Opportunity for public in attendance to ask any questions.
Just to the upcoming meetings, do we still have strategic planning on January 11th?
Yes, we do.
We do, yes. Seeing no questions, I get a motion to adjourn. Mover. Second. Councilor Mattis.